Bane is by far one of my favorite Batman characters. Naturally, it's Bane. Who doesn't love Bane? So, for my 6-inch DCUC style Batman collection, I was kind of starving for a Bane for a while. I did have that DC Superheroes one that was all squat and everything, and it's a very cool figure. I actually still have it, but it doesn't really compare to these. I did feel like I was never going to get the DCUC Collect and Connect Bane. So when the McFarlane one was solicited and came out, I was like, yes, that's an instant buy. I love that McFarlane Bane. I actually still do. It was in my top 10 figures of the year. However, I always felt like the DCUC Bane was out of my grasp, but even though I really love the McFarlane, I was like, I still want that DCUC Bane. So my brother found it for me for a pretty decent price. It wasn't like the greatest deal of all time, but it wasn't triple digits, so I'll take it. Yeah, the DCUC Bane, he's going up there. You can still find him every once in a while for a decent price like I did, under $100. But many places, they're asking, $120, $150, nearly $200 for this DCUC Collect and Connect Bane. And it's a lot of money. However, I've spent a lot of money on it. I'm pretty transparent, I will say. I spent $90 on this DCUC Mattel Bane, which is a little over twice as much as this McFarlane, Big Fig Bane. I really do love them both, and I'm going to keep them both in my collection. That's not a debate. What this is a debate for is for you guys. The guys that want a Bane in your Batman collection, specifically 6 or 7-inch collection. We have the Mattel Collect and Connect, and we have the McFarlane Big Fig. There will be a Mafex Nightfall Bane. Here is the prototype image. This is all we have seen. It will likely be over $100. It seems like a very nice figure. I may possibly still buy it. However, I do have to say I'm very happy with these two Banes. And essentially this video is for you guys that want to see which Bane should I have in my life. Because there's pros and cons to both of them, honestly. I feel like one is probably my favorite over the other, just because of pure nostalgia, probably. And you can probably guess what that is. But I love them both, I really do. So one of the main things that I considered when debating, should I get the McFarlane one, was the scale. The McFarlane one, as you can see, is a 7-inch scaled figure. It is a bigger figure than the DCUC Collect and Connect. However, Bane is naturally just a big guy. So one thing I want to do is kind of show the scaling of these two Banes alongside a couple different figures of Batman. So if you have a DCUC style Batman collection, if you still love the old Mattel 6-inch stuff, or you're into the import 6-inch stuff, which are about the same size, here is a DCUC 6-inch Batman. So putting him next to these Banes, and making these Banes as straight as possible. Oh man, I can't believe I finally have this Collect and Connect. I love it so much. So having them, as straight stood as possible, you can see that no matter what, your Bane is going to be huge, which is awesome. Personally, I think with a 6-inch collection, I love the McFarlane one. I feel like it works, but I do feel like it's just a tad too big. On my shelf, I had him kind of hunched over, looking a little more, close to the ground, a little more in scale. However, I feel like the Collect and Connect definitely scales better with the intended DCUC stuff. This is a great scale for Bane on this Collect and Connect. And I personally, if you're collecting DCUC, if you're willing to spend $40, $45 on this, if you can find this for just twice as much, I would go for the Collect and Connect, me personally. This is coming from someone who bought the McFarlane and was like, awesome, I have a Bane for my collection. However, I still felt compelled to track down and get the Collect and Connect. I still felt like my collection needed it, and I'm very happy I decided to get this because now I feel like my Batman collection is so much more complete when it comes to having a 6-inch scale Batman collection, having this, not only more in-scale Bane, but also more classic and retro-looking Bane. However, I don't want to discourage people who want this McFarlane Bane for a 6-inch collection. This Bane is still very nice and still obviously works pretty well with a 6-inch collection. It's kind of like the whole Diamond Select Marvel Legends thing. It's a big character. It'll work. It just does. The massive Collect and Connect Killer Croc that was the very last Mattel Collect and Connect, that is the exact same size as this Bane. So if you want Croc and Bane to be kind of toe-to-toe, these massive monster guys duking it out, works perfect. Really does. However, if you want it to be a little more kind of comic accurate, where like, Croc's still this big crocodile monster man, but Bane, while smaller, is still big and beefy enough to seriously break Croc's arm, then you want to stick with the Mattel stuff. I personally, I like this guy. He is not leaving my collection. Often with these old versus news, I'm like, which one am I going to keep? Which one is going to be the main one on the shelf? Blah, blah, blah. Honestly, even though this one's going to be on my 6-inch Batman shelf, this guy, in my opinion, still has a great home with, what else? McFarlane figures. It's kind of funny at the end of the day. It's like, oh, surprise, surprise, the Mattel Bane scales best with the Mattel Batman, and the McFarlane Batman scales best with the McFarlane Bane. Look at that. However, I want to say, the McFarlane Batman actually looks pretty good with the Mattel Bane. Kind of surprisingly. If you like Bane being a little more, not ridiculously huge compared to Batman, because me personally, I like Batman. I like Bane being huge compared to Batman, unless it's Tom Hardy. That's a totally different interpretation. However, when it comes to this, if you like them being a little more kind of Tom Hardy-esque, where yes, Tom Hardy is a big, buff, beefy Bane, but he's not really significantly taller than Batman, I think this works. I actually think that works. So if you want a more classic comic book Bane for your McFarlane Batman collection, the DCUC is not a bad option. If you like mixing and matching toy lines. However, for me, this McFarlane Bane I will definitely have displayed with my McFarlane DC collection, which is kind of growing. I never intended on having this whole shelf of McFarlane DC Batman stuff, but I pretty much do now. It's a thing. It's happened. I pretty much, I'm building like a little bit of a rogues gallery with the McFarlane stuff. But Batman is one of my favorite action figure lines to collect. Just anything Batman. I love Batman. So I really wanted to make this video for those that love Batman, but don't love him to the degree that I do, where you're just fine having upteenth different versions of Batman and several different versions of the same character. There's some lines where I'm kind of one and done on things, and there's other lines where I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll have 5 different versions of this character. Why not? So, the scale was honestly one of the biggest points I wanted to make in this video. You can see, this guy's just this big old beefcake, and he is definitely more of a comic book Nightfall style Bane. However, another thing I wanted to point out is the aesthetic. Obviously, the Mattel Collect and Connect is almost straight out of the comic book. That is Nightfall Bane. That is classic Bane. He has the one tube running from his mask. He's got this nice little paint up there on the mask for some extra venom tubes. It's on his bicep, and it goes into this gauntlet on his arm. It's really cool how it's like this one massive piece that runs all the way through. And the articulation is pretty much untouched. It's entirely unhindered because of the size of the tube. I don't feel afraid at all to mess with that. It's funny, though, he's a Collect and Connect, so I didn't build this guy. I actually don't know what part was that. Was that the part that plugged in? Was his head, did his head just have the tube, attached to it? I don't know. I don't want to tear it off to find out. Yeah, that is one downside of this guy. He was a Collect and Connect. Even back in the day, he was kind of hard to get. And he is, you've seen some Marvel Legends Build-A-Figures. They're nearing $100. This guy's pretty much the same thing. It's still a very nice figure, though. Definitely super accurate. I love the shirt look. It's just so classic for Bane. The big black pants, the massive boots. I like how glossy the boots are, too. The belt is simplistic, but effective. It is such a nice looking Bane. He has fists, which is very noteworthy. This Bane has fists. I like when my Banes have fists, so he can punch things, because that's kind of what he does. Ah, man, I love this figure, I really do. However, the McFarlane is no slouch. It does sacrifice comic book accuracy for a bit of a McFarlaneization of the character. Essentially, he kind of has some Arkham Asylum influence with how big and beefy he is. His venom tubes run a little differently than they do in the comics. He's got this tank on his back now. He's got 2 tubes. He's got this one massive tube running through his head. He's got this chest rig, which kind of makes sense having this chest rig if he is going to have a backpack. So the chest rig's kind of over the outfit there. However, the rest of him is pretty classic. You know, he's got black pants. He does have the nice big boots still, which are really nice looking. He's got added pockets. He does have all this added, like, sculpt and texture to him, which really does make him look good. I really do like all the sculpt and detail that McFarlane puts into their stuff. I love the muscle and everything. It's very nicely articulated. I mean, I would say both of them are, you know, for being big, beefy Banes, pretty nicely posable. I mean, you can see this one, the head articulation, goes down a lot, which I think is really beneficial for a Bane. Doesn't go up too much, though, and good side to side. The shoulders move. The elbows are a bit limited, but they still do the job. This one has open hands, which I take issue with, personally. I wish for $40 you would have gotten swap out hands. That would have really been appreciated. Because sure, these hands are nice if you want him to break the bat. You know, they're better hands from holding Batman. But for fighting him, he doesn't have fists. You know, he needs to punch Batman. That's what he does. His torso is on this nice ball joint. Doesn't get too much motion, but it does move very nice and smooth. The legs kind of do their McFarlane thing, their clicky McFarlane thing. Very tight double knees that do go all the way, but I'm not going to worry about it right here. Then he's got ankles and toes, and he's pretty well articulated, I'd say. I do want to try to get them both in similar poses. Yeah, let's try to get them both in, like, a venomized, like, they just got pumped with some venom. And they're going like, ugh, I'm Bane, Here, let's see if we can get them both in a similar pose. I got to run down the Mattel's articulation first. So yeah, there we go. He just got pumped full of venom. He's ready to trample Batman. There we go. Stands really nice, too, with those ankle rockers. And then the Mattel one. I almost called it the McFarlane one. I tried to mash the names. This one does have more upward with the head motion. And still does have a decent amount down, but I feel like it could have a little bit more. It's got some side to side. The shoulders don't go up as much, but this one does have bicep swivel now. His elbows do go in more than the McFarlane, so that's good. He does have an ab crunch, which I really like. I really like Bane having an ab crunch. I think that really works. He's got a swivel at the waist. He does have those classic Mattel-style hips, where they've got that kind of gaping, weird L shape inside the thigh. But, I mean, it works. He has a single knee, which is surprisingly effective for just a single knee. Thigh swivel, ankles move up and down. Don't really have any pivot whatsoever, though, because it's, you know, it's old school DCUC. They weren't really at that point quite yet. However, let's try to get him in a similar pose. Get him roiding out. Ugh. Man, I just think the fists work so much better for Bane. Like, I would say 90% of the poses, you're going to want him with fists. There we go. So I would say, like, they're both very nice figures. They really are. I'm going to say at the end of the day, this is going to be up to personal preference. Get out of there, the fallen foot. There we go. I still haven't found a spot on my shelf for the fallen. Anyways, they're both very nice figures. And for my purposes, me being just a fan of Batman action figures in general, like I'm talking even Kenner stuff from the 90s. I just love Batman action figures. I love them both. Both of them have a very comfortable, happy home in my collection. I'm a little disappointed that I had to spend quite a bit of money on this instead of just getting it for free. You know, someone watching this, it's immediately directed just at them. Just at them. You know who you are. Anyways, yeah, you know, I spent quite a bit of money on this, but I still really love it. It was worth it, man. It was worth it for me. It was seriously worth $90 to me. And I love it. It really makes me happy. And ultimately, you know, the way I see it, I love Bane. He's one of my favorite Batman villains. He's like top 3 for me. I love him. And I finally have a really nice DCUC Bane that can go with my 6-inch Batman collection. And this McFarlane Bane will have a very happy home with my growing, and hopefully won't be as comprehensive as the 6-inch stuff, because I've gotten pretty deep with the 6-inch stuff, and my growing McFarlane collection. So yeah, there we go. At the end of the day, the purposes I will serve for these figures, they're going to go with the other figures that the matching manufacturers made, because I think that's how they fit best. However, in this situation, with how expensive that old Collecting Connect is, and how harder it is to get it, you might want to opt for the McFarlane one for your 6-inch collection. Or if you're a McFarlane collector that really doesn't like when Todd McFarlaneizes things, and if you want a more classic Bane, you have the Mattel one. That exists. Me personally, I think the Mattel one is worth nearing $100, but once it gets triple digits, no. Don't get it for triple digits. Great figure, not worth that much. The McFarlane Bane is a very impressive figure. They're both great. Absolutely great. I have very little issue with each. I would say my main significant issue with the McFarlane one is that he does not have fists. And my main significant issue with the Collecting Connect is that he just has some of those old Mattel-isms, like no ankle rockers, the big gaping weird thigh gaps. He just has some Mattel-isms from back in the day. But, I mean, with a collection of other Mattel stuff, it fits. It's a Mattel figure. I really like both these. I really love both of these. And I hope this video was informative for those kind of deciding which one to get over the other. If you can only get one, keep in mind, I will show the image one more time. Mafex is making a Nightfall Bane, and it very likely might totally demolish both the Mattel and the McFarlane Banes. We have not seen a painted prototype yet. Is it something I might get? Yeah, I might get it. The only Mafex I have is the Hush Batman, and I love it. I'm very selective with import stuff like that, but if that Bane looks really, really good, still might get it. So it might end up being a rematch. You know, give it about a year or two when that Mafex one ever comes out, and we might have a rematch on our hands. You know, Mattel versus McFarlane versus Mafex. Triple M rematch, baby. Alrighty, there we go. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know which Bane you prefer down in the comments below. Me personally, love them both. Have to give it to the Mattel one, though. Just for my own personal taste. I just love a classic Mattel DCUC. I love them. Special shout out to the channel members, as always. Thank you all so much for the continued support. I genuinely appreciate it. Alrighty, guys, there we go. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.